What even is The Last Guest? For those who aren't even familiar with Roblox. Well, my dear viewers, The Last Guest is a Roblox movie starring our favorite guest named Guest, who will later be called Guest 1337. The Last Guest was originally a 4-part series, garnering over 27 million views, and when the full movie, which combines all the other parts, along with a few fixes, came out, that movie received over 90 million views. This Roblox movie became so iconic that it won an award. All the Roblox YouTubers were reacting to it. The main character got its own plush, and it even made it onto Prime. Wait, I could have sworn that it made it onto Prime Video. Just like how Murder Drones also made it there recently, and how The Amazing Digital Circus made it onto Netflix. I don't know if it's because I live in America specifically, but what gives? Well, whatever. It also made it onto IMDb, and it's all created by this particular Roblox YouTuber, who, alongside watching Kavra stories, and is one of the Roblox series, I also used to watch back when I was in middle school. Most of you know ObliviousHD from watching The Last Guest, or his recent works. But for me, I first watched him when he used to make these 5 types of videos. And they were the funniest shit. Like, come on, Matt. Why would you take down some of these videos? They were fucking hilarious. I feel like whenever people talk about ObliviousHD, no one seems to talk about his past content. That reminds me of the old Gmod animations from back in the day.
Finished! My game is the best! What can I name it? Oh, I know. Scary Clown. Tycoon! And now all I has to do is publish this game! Bam!
Day 2.
Wow! My game has got 1 million visits! I am a very good builder.
This right here is comedy gold because of how accurate it is to modern Roblox. And in times like these, I'm just grateful we have someone like Shamai making videos, giving actual great Roblox games the spotlight they deserve. Like, okay, if you still intend on keeping them unlisted, at least make a playlist of them so that we can still rewatch them and laugh at how funny they were. Now, the reason why I'm even talking about this is to emphasize Matt's growth as a creator. He first made comedic videos, and then transitioned to creating serious Roblox animations with an emphasis on storytelling, starting with Guest 666, which is based on a Roblox myth, and then The Last Guest, Blox Watch, and the Bacon Hair series. And he also made music videos, but I'm not a huge fan of pop music. I would rather listen to some real music and Toho music. Keep in mind, Matt was a teenager when he created The Last Guest, and that's really impressive. I remember watching The Last Guest when it first came out, and then I stopped watching at part 3 for some reason. I don't remember why I stopped caring about The Last Guest, nor did I felt anything emotional, but after making a video about the red dress girl, I decided to rewatch it again to see if it's exactly what I remember it to be. And after rewatching the entirety of The Last Guest, actually, before I say what I really think of The Last Guest, I understand that Matt worked really hard on it, and he probably didn't have a bigger budget back then. But as one of my favorite YouTubers would say,
hard work does not equal masterpiece.
And Matt himself even agrees that there are a lot of things he wishes he'd do differently now that he's grown older. But even so, why do people love The Last Guest anyways? Although I have played a lot of Roblox and consumed a decent amount of Roblox content back in middle school, I'm not exactly knowledgeable about the Roblox community, but I can safely assume that nostalgia has to be a huge factor in why people love The Last Guest. Since it came out in late 2017, you can see a lot of people reminiscing about their childhood over it, and apparently, the movie also made a lot of people cry. I'm still not sure if 7 years is considered nostalgia though. There were also a lot of YouTubers hyping this shit up, and even some of them actually voice acting in The Last Guest. Really a smart way to gain lots of traction. There are probably other reasons why The Last Guest got so popular, but I didn't get much help from my community post, so you can comment down below on why that's the case. And people say that the animation was really impressive during its time. And then there's this software, and Well, it kinda speaks for itself. Maybe the standards were much lower at the time, but it makes sense though. Despite the fact that Roblox Studio was mainly used for developing games, Matt had to rely on scripting and use some of the free stuff from sites like Mixamo to work around these limitations and convey the story he wanted to tell. Like, he could have just stuck to how he usually makes his videos if he wanted to, but decided to make The Last Guest anyways. Heck, Mrs. Blue also faced similar challenges, considering that source filmmaker may or may not have lots of issues. But despite all of that, the film still came out great, and tons of videos are being made about it. But even after the improvements from his recent works, I'm not exactly concerned with whether the visuals look great or not, just as long as The Last Guest tells a great story, right? Well, the story is not exactly well written.
What the
fuck is this?
But we'll get there. At least we can acknowledge that Jack Black is not in the movie.
I'm
Guest. Now, there are already a couple of reviews pointing out its flaws, one of which I've already shown that Matt has already commented on, and one whose title I don't necessarily agree with, since there are far more worse Roblox animations, like there. But I don't think I see anyone going more in depth into The Last Guest, which is where I come in. And so with that, I think it's best if I show you whether The Last Guest is truly great or not. Hell yeah, another recap time, while also pointing out some flaws along the way. And no, I will not be covering both Guest 666 and the Bacon Hair series, because I've already watched them all, and both stories are completely different from The Last Guest. And for Blox Watch, you might be surprised to hear this, but this is actually the sequel to The Last Guest, which I will get to at the end. So anyways, let's get things started here. The story begins with the Guest and his friend fighting in a war when his friend gets shot.
War never changes.
Right off the bat, you can already tell that only the first part of the story is kinda similar to this Try Not to Cry video that doesn't have this one epic gamer moment that was actually cut from the original comic. How do I know this? Dumpsville made a video about it. Anyways, we then cut to the beginning of Guest's childhood, where we learned about the Guest's disappearance.
Why are guests like us disappearing? That's nothing to worry about.
And I've neglected to tell you that The Last Guest is actually a dramatic representation of the time when Roblox decided to remove all the guests, which if you guys don't know, guest mode was a feature that players can use to play Roblox without ever having to sign up for an account. There are already tons of videos about the removal. Also, last time I checked, guests literally cannot speak words. But this is a Roblox movie, so... Anyways, we also learned that the guests have been frowned upon by society, solely because they're a guest.
Hey look, it's a stupid guest. Didn't think there were any of them left.
Yeah, I know.
But this one message will be prevalent throughout the entire story.
Be strong, little man.
Always be strong.
Yeah, I know it's kinda cheesy, but I guess it works well with what the story is trying to tell. On one unfortunate rainy day, when Guest is playing on the playground, a bacon hair killed his parents. In the original video, it was shown that Guest was hiding from the bacon hair, and the full movie didn't show that for some reason, so we are left to assume that the bacon hair ignored him. Guest's parents are at the hospital, but unfortunately, it turns out that the bacon hair who killed his parents is part of the villainous Bacon Soldier terrorist organization. I'm gonna refer to them as the Bacon Empire because it's easier that way, and rather than the bacon hair being portrayed as this wholesome beings like in Kaffer's stories, these bacon hairs in particular are seen as a threat, wanting to eliminate all of the guests and causing fear throughout Roblox. Later on, Guest was sent to the orphanage, where he meets his first friend Daisy. They then play in the playground together when Daisy started getting bullied. He tries to stand up for her, but...
You weak, pathetic guest. No wonder your species died out.
Oh, fucking righteous fucking...
Luckily, ObliviousHD's self-insert jumps in to save the day.
Go pick on somebody your own size, yeah?
From this point on, I will refer to Matt as a character, and ObliviousHD as a YouTuber who created The Last Guest. After Matt introduces himself, the three decided to become best friends and play video games together. I have no idea why they're spending most of their childhood playing Nintendo games on their Xbox controllers. But then, a bacon carrot is coming, causing the three to hide. And when the bacon carrot arrives, he slowly walks towards the cabinet and opens it, most predictably.
Looks like I was wrong. Oh, damn it! The police!
Yeah, I never felt any sense of dread watching this. I've recently watched the remake of this particular scene, and as predictable as opening the wrong cabinet may be, the vibe of this scene feels a lot different. Like how dark the atmosphere looks, and how quiet the background is. Minus the music playing when the characters speak. The original one feels way too dramatic, while the remake makes you feel like you're hiding from Michael Myers. Although, I'm not sure if I want to know what the bacon hairs were shooting at. Anyways, since we already know that the bacon hairs are targeting all the guests,
The bacon soldiers seriously don't like your people.
this raises a couple of questions. How did the bacon hair know exactly where guest is located? And why are they hell-bent on killing all the guests? Hopefully this question will be answered as the movie progresses. 10 years later, both Guest and Daisy got married, and look who decided to show up at their wedding. They both have a child together, and are living a happy life as a family. Until he becomes the last guest standing, that the fear of the bacon hairs grew stronger. Well, 1.5 if you count Guest's daughter. Because of this, both Guest and Matt decided to join the army together.
Well, look who we have here. It's the rat from the orphanage.
For some reason, the two bullies also decided to join the army, and after Guest felt that they aren't worth his time and energy,
Yeah, that's it. You better run away. You weak, pathetic guest.
you know, it makes me wonder why they even joined the army in the first place. We then cut to the most intense training arc, and judging by the looks of their faces, you can tell how serious they are, until they are officially ready to fight in the war. They arrived at the battlefield, somewhere in the desert, and the bacon carrots ambushed them. They fought back against them, and eventually, leading us back to where we started. Matt getting shot. And again, there aren't any epic gamer moments to add to that. Just imagine if one of these bacon hairs turned out to be a couple of kids playing this game.
Get the fuck out of my room! I'm playing.
But then that also means you cannot respawn, and everyone has to become real hardcore gamers.
No!
As all hope seems lost, and our allies are about to retreat, Guest wasn't having it.
I'm not giving up. We came here to protect our families and friends, and I'm not giving up until every last one of them is dead, or until I am.
And after remembering his parents' words,
Be strong, little man.
Always be strong.
he somehow managed to power through, literally wide open, to beat the shit out of these bacon hairs, all without getting shot. But gets shot anyways.
What a pleasure it is to meet you, the last guest.
Holy shit, he said the thing. And upon looking at the oil tank, he uses his final moments to do this. Although, the oil tank is literally far away, how the fuck does that even work? At the end, Daisy and her daughter learned about Guest's sacrifice. A statue of Guest was built to honor him as a war hero.
This statue is here not to represent the tragic end of all guests, but a memorial of hope and determination they have given all of us for.
And by some miracle, Matt is alive. Although it did look like he got shot in the head or something. He gives a speech on how much of a hero Guest is, and provides us with a good moral lesson.
That it is important not to judge a person from their appearance, to really get to know what that person is like on the inside.
And as Matt, Daisy, and her daughter take a good look at the statue one last time, the daughter reads a heartfelt note her dad left for her before sacrificing himself, and relays the story's most common message.
Be strong. Always be strong.
And then it turns out that Guest is actually alive. I thought that should be obvious, considering the length of the video. So far, the first part of The Last Guest is pretty solid. It's a simple story about the last guest who became a war hero, wanting to protect his friends and family from the Bacon Empire, with some good, valuable lessons on how to be strong and not to judge people based on their appearance. And while I don't exactly hate The Last Guest, that doesn't stop it from having any flaws, because I've already pointed out a few flaws along the way, and I still have a couple more I want to point out. Firstly, there's not really much character development. Matt and Daisy seemed way too perfect, with no flaws. They seem to only serve a specific role, Daisy being Guess's wife, and Matt being his best friend. Literally within the first few episodes of The Amazing Digital Circus, we already got to know all these characters so well. And Guest, his character arc seemed fine to me, I guess, but I'm still trying to figure out if there's a better way for the last guest to show how much he's grown as a main character, from him being scared and wanting to run away, to choosing to be a strong person and face his problems head on, thus making this message more impactful in the process. Like, yeah, I know his parents got killed, and that motivated him to join the army, but I don't know. What do you guys think about his character arc? Secondly, I don't want to come off as this heartless bastard, but I'm still struggling to figure out why and how this movie made people cry. Sure, there are a few moments I did kinda understand why, but again, I don't think 13-year-old me even bawled my eyes out watching this. One film I can think of that did genuinely make me want to cry is The Iron Giant.
You stay. I go. No following.
For anyone who hasn't seen the film, the scene where the Iron Giant sacrifices himself to save a small town from a nuclear bomb genuinely hits me so fucking hard.
You are who you choose to be.
I've once watched this film 3 times, and it still gave me chills. Safe to say that The Last Guest is not even close to being as sad as The Iron Giant.
Dead.
You know, I just realized something. The Iron Giant sacrificing himself equals a statue of him being built. The Last Guest sacrificing himself also equals a statue of him being built. I'm starting to see some similarities here. Or if you want a much sadder film, then here's this. I don't think I need to explain why that film is devastating as fuck, but watch it for yourself and find out. And lastly, the animation, like I said before, is not on par with ObliviousHD's recent works, but despite the fight scenes looking clunky, it's still pretty easy to understand. So personally, it doesn't really bother me, as I'm more focused on how the story is written, because I don't think even the greatest visuals could fix any writing problems. I mean, obviously I know The Last Guest is not supposed to be a cinematic masterpiece since it first came out in late 2017, but still, ObliviousHD was a teenager when he made The Last Guest, so I'll cut him some slack. At least The Last Guest is still better than all of the content farmy slop we see today. So anyways, moving on to the second part. It is 11 years in the past, and I have no idea why it's called Bacon Camp. The second part of The Last Guest shows us that there are always 2 sides to every story, as we are introduced to a new character named Jez. As it turns out, Jez's father, the Bacon General, is actually the same guy who killed Guess's parents, as we see him forcing Jez to train to become his successor. And the General giving Jez a scar kinda reminds me of how Fire Lord Ozai gave Zuko a scar. During all of this, we are also introduced to another character named Zara, where she and Jez spent most of their childhood together, until one day, Jez discovers that her mother got stabbed.
Jez, hey, wake up.
We are then in this Bacon school, and from what we were told, it was a guest who killed his mother.
How can you be sure it was a guess?
Come on, you already know this, Zara. The Colonel and my father both saw the guest running away.
And it would seem like he and the rest of the Bacon hairs are being taught that all guests are evil by Thick Noodles of all people.
Friend Thick Noodles!
Basically indoctrinating the students with propaganda, all because they thought they were the ones being mistreated.
Guests wanted Bacon people removed from Roblox. They thought we were thieves and murderers. police arrested us for no reason. Shopkeepers refused to sell food to us and we were forced to move away.
Except, the last guest never shows us why the bacon hairs hates the guests so much in the first place. For all we know, everything the teacher said could be exaggerated to fit their narrative, which he would later admit at the near end of the movie.
I can't stand in front of a class and teach students bacon propaganda any longer.
The general then comes in and brings the students to their first training session. He had them fight against each other until there is one left standing. Obviously, Jess is the winner here, and now he has the opportunity to stand by him at the guest games. I hope you kept this in mind. We then cut to the general and another main villain, the colonel, going over Guest, who is now given the name Guest 1337. Yeah, throughout the first part, Guest 1337 was referred to as Guest, and I've been holding this off until this very moment, but why is he called Guest when there are literally plenty of unique names out there? Whatever, I'm still gonna call him Guest for consistency. We then have the other last remaining guest, which again is a problem regarding the name of this, which I will explain later on. We then cut to Zara and her father discussing the supplies she is about to send to the camp. What kind of camp, you may ask? That is when Jess decides to follow her through the forest until we reach the guest prison camp. I'm not joking, there's actually a concentration camp in a Roblox movie. And moving aside the fact that there's a literal concentration camp for the guests, I thought Guest was the last remaining guest. The title literally says it all, and it was mentioned multiple times that he is the last surviving guest. 1.5 if you count Guest's daughter. The reason why it's called Avatar: The Last Airbender is because Aang is literally the last surviving air nomad after the Fire Nation committed genocide against all the other air nomads in existence.
Firebenders? They were here?
And if you somehow want to argue that this takes place before Guest joined the army, then just know that these guests are still alive afterwards. Maybe the public isn't aware of the camp's existence, but did the bacon hairs just decide to kill most of the guests and then secretly kidnap some of them for their guest games? Because that's what it seems like to me. Or was the entire thing retconned? Anyways,
I'm so sorry for what my people are doing to you.
Thank you, Zara. You are too kind.
after Jess caught Zara given these guest supplies, he is about to report on her when he discovers a knife inside the Colonel's drawer, the same exact knife that killed his mother, leading him to believe that a guest did not in fact kill his mother. It was the Colonel.
I just wanted to say I'm really looking forward to the guest games tomorrow.
That is understandable. Guest games are always an exciting highlight of the year.
So, he didn't report on Zara.
I think you're right about my mother. I have no time to explain now.
And somehow didn't apologize to her for lashing out at her. And now, we cut to the guest games.
Welcome to our annual guest games. These games are here to demonstrate the power and might of the glorious Bacon Empire, to show that we are the superior race.
Yeah, I think you and I already know what we're both thinking of. The guest games is a gladiator type thing, where the guests are pitted against each other to fight to the death for the Bacon's own amusement. However, the more Jess watches the game, the more horrified he becomes and realizes how fucked up their empire is. And this is where Jess starts to question what's really right or wrong.
All my life I believed that guests were my enemy. But how can I think that when my people slaughter guests for entertainment? My father is a monster.
And then we are introduced to a new character named Guest 555, or Rose, whose hair is not the same color. Jess, Zara, and Rose spend most of their time bonding together, building a snowman, playing chess, and somehow reading about the lore of Guest 666. At this point, the three are becoming best friends, and they all even dream of a world where Guests, Bacon Hairs, and everyone else live together in peace and harmony.
And every Sunday we'd have a nice hot barbecue with all the sausages and burgers we could ever dream of.
Yeah, you can keep dreaming about that one.
Just like how Aang wanted to bring all the nations together. Also, for a child who's stuck in a prison camp, Rose awfully seemed way too happy but maybe that's because she finally has people whom she could call friends, wanting to comfort her during these horrific times. Unfortunately, Rose has been chosen for the guest games. But luckily, Zara devised a plan to rescue Rose and all the other guests by distracting the guards and taking them down.
Well, I'm screwed.
Yeah, that was a weird delivery, and hopefully the plan doesn't go very wrong. When the guests didn't show up at the gate,
don't worry, you won't be seeing them anytime soon.
And because the Colonel isn't too fond of traitors, Zara gets killed, and Jess gets locked up with all the other guests as punishment. He then experiences, this, where he talks to his dead mother and his best friend, and even with all hope seems lost, this one message will also be prevalent alongside staying strong.
Never give up.
As Jess gets called to his father's office, he tries to confront him about the Colonel killing his mother, but he denies everything. And now, it all leads back to the events of the first part. As it seems like they're nearing victory, Jess decides to confront the Colonel about his dead mother, but then it was revealed that the Colonel didn't kill his mother.
It was your father.
Then, the general sees Guest fighting his way through the battlefield and orders his troops to stand down.
Nobody shoot him. He's mine.
Which kinda explains how Guest didn't get shot on sight back in part 1, but that still doesn't excuse him from having plot armor though. And after Jess remembers the story's other most common message, Jess gets up and fights back, and when he sees that his father is about to kill Guest, he rushes in and saves him. You know, I have to commend ObliviousHD for somehow making The Last Guest an allegory for racism, and also a commentary on war, just like how We Bare Bears is an allegory for being a minority. I even made a video talking about it. So far, Jess's story seems fine, I guess. It's a simple story about Jess, who was supposed to be the successor of his father, but later learns how fucked up the Bacon Empire is and wants to rebel against him. It kinda reminds me of Zuko's journey, except I like Zuko's better. He started out as a villain, wanting approval from the Fire Nation, before gradually growing as a character, and then joining Team Avatar afterwards to stop the Fire Nation, earning his redemption arc, and it really shows.
Growing up, we were taught that the Fire Nation was the greatest civilization in history, and somehow, the war was our way of sharing our greatness with the rest of the world. What an amazing lie that was. The people of the world are terrified by the Fire Nation. They don't see our greatness. They hate us, and we deserve it.
And Zara seems to be an important character to Jess, but much like how both Matt and Daisy didn't get much characterization, it doesn't feel like we got to know her that well. If only we had more time to get to know her as a character, then her death would have been much more impactful, just like how we got to know Mace Hughes as a loving husband, father, and a great friend to the Elric brothers, before he was killed by envy. No, literally. And his death devastated me because we were shown how much of a great guy he is.
It's a terrible day for rain.
What do you mean? It's not raining.
Yes, it is.
Anyways, we still don't know why the Bacon Empire are so adamant about killing all the guests. The trailer said they were gonna find out how and why it all started, but never did. We already got a small implication from the Bacon teacher that could be the reason why, but again, that could be an exaggeration to fit their narrative. And even so, why not show it instead of exposition dumps? Sure, you could argue that the general killing his wife and then spreading lies to enforce their beliefs that all guests are evil could be the reason why, but that still doesn't explain why the general hates them so much. Did the guests do something so bad that causes the Bacon hairs to resent them? Or was it a massive lie the general made up?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Did a fortune teller somehow prophesize that the guest would be a potential threat to the Bacon hairs, that he started this whole genocide to avoid his fate? Just like how Lord Shen tried to do the same with the panda species? Maybe the general used to be friends with the guest, until something happened between the two that caused the whole thing to begin with. Was he trying to be like the Fire Lord?
From our airships, we will rain fire over their lands. A fire that will destroy everything. And out of the ashes, a new world will be born. A world in which all the lands are Fire Nation. And I am the supreme ruler of everything.
If not, then I'm more inclined to believe that these two are just straight up racist for the sake of it. Also, is it just me, or does the Colonel sound a lot like Legadlanius from Fallout New Vegas?
An envoy of Vegas, yet you carry yourself for battle. If so, you cannot truly be of that city of cowards.
Anyways, before moving on to the third part, it would genuinely mean a lot if you guys want to support my Patreon so I can keep making videos like this. It genuinely makes me happy that you're taking the time out of your day to watch my silly videos, since it takes a long time for me to get a video done. So please support my Patreon, subscribe to my channel, and I hope you enjoy the video again. Moving to the Roblox army camp, the captain has been told about the explosion, and Matt is the only person who had last seen Guest. If only there was someone to accompany him to investigate the battlefield.
We've both injured our knees, sir. We can hardly walk.
Wow, you would think after Guest beat the shit out of them, they would have reflected on their past behavior, and then after the battle, they would have realized how awful they treated Guest, right? Anyways, he and this female soldier, Molly, went to go investigate the battlefield. They found Matt lying unconscious, which, I'm sorry, but did the Roblox army just leave him behind when they were retreating? And to make things worse, the captain gets killed by a bacon assassin. Like, his death could have been easily prevented if they had taken Matt along with them back to the camp. Or maybe they still intended on going back just to look for Guest's whereabouts? I don't fucking know. And why does Matt look like he got shot in the chest? I thought he got shot in the leg, and it looked like he got shot in the fucking head. Anyways, Molly gets chased by the assassin, but luckily she was able to escape. As Jess wakes up from the explosion, he carries Guest to the jeep and leaves his father to rot after he tries to justify killing his mother.
I did it all for you, son. To make you into a strong and powerful leader.
You locked away, humiliated, and killed hundreds of innocent people. I will never help you.
Also, you would think that in an explosion this big, he would have been vaporized into dust. After Jess arrives at the hospital, he then carries Guest inside the building, and have Zara's father, who I'm gonna refer to as the Doctor, try to save his life, and
he's alive.
Can you tell how surprised I am? The Colonel just became the new leader of the Bacon Empire, as he is informed about what happened to the General, and guess his whereabouts.
Are you telling me there's a possibility he escaped?
Well, yes, sir. There could be a chance he's...
Guest then finally wakes up and discovers that he is in Bacon's territory. He threatens them at first, but Jess and the Doctor tries to explain that they're on his side.
We are part of a resistance that wants to end this regime.
This is the first time I'm hearing about this. The Colonel then shows up, forcing both Jess and Guest to hide inside the bunker for the time being. Also, if you want to build a resistance, why not make this bunker a secret passageway to like an underground society wanting to rebel against the Bacon Empire, assuming that the Doctor would be the leader of the resistance? And is there a way to make him kind of like a mentor figure to Jess, like Uncle Iroh? I don't think I've seen any interesting interactions between the two since the second part. Jess then informs Guest about all the other guests being alive, and seeing that the prison camp beefed up security, the two decides to team up and take down the guards, one of them being this guy for some reason.
Yeah, that Jez guy. He beat the hell out of me and Pablito at the gym last year in training.
Yeah, it's kinda harder for me to take the last guest seriously.
What is a guest doing outside of the prison?
And it doesn't help that I've never actually watched the guy before, so... Anyways, upon meeting up with Rose, she immediately recognizes Guest and tells him how he is a hero to the entire camp.
The last guest. You're a hero to everyone here at the camp.
Which, I don't know how that information got to the entire camp.
I'm sorry for what they've done to you. I used to be a friend of your parents.
And how exactly does Guest know Rose's parents? We then cut to a flashback of Rose and her parents, possibly recorded in Bloxburg. They were watching the news on the bacon hairs killing the guests, and they were considering moving to a safer place.
We need to leave first thing tomorrow morning.
No, let's just think about this.
You've been watching the news. The bacon soldiers are slaughtering guests.
But what about Rose? Her
I
friends?
am thinking about Rose and you.
Unfortunately, after moving to a farm, the bacon hairs have found them and killed Rose's father.
Hello, Rose.
And that is how Rose and her mother ended up in the prison camp. And now Guest, Jess, and Rose devise a plan together to rescue her and all the other guests. Rose explains that there's an underground passageway that leads the guests to the waiting area, to the arena. But it's up to our two main heroes to figure out how to get past the guards. And so, the plan is set in action. Guest and Jess take down the guards at the front gate, then they break into the underground passageway, beating all the guards, and Guest somehow dodged the bullet. Dude, this isn't the Matrix, you know. And then, when they enter the arena, something doesn't seem right.
The last guest. I've heard so many great things about you.
And as it turns out, they were lured into a trap. And how did they know both of them were going to be there? Well, as it turns out, Rose is a traitor. Or more accurately, Rose was used as a spy. It turns out that Rose was never going to be in the guest games. It's going to be these two. And now, the Colonel is plotting to capture Guest's family. And somehow, ObliviousHD was able to seamlessly transition from part 3 to part 4. We're then back at the statue of Guest, where Matt comforts Guest's family, unaware of the fact that he is actually still alive. As they are heading out, both Daisy and Matt reminisces about their childhood with Guest before taking Matt to the hospital, oblivious to the fact that they are being followed. They arrive at the hospital and meet this new captain, whom he and Molly have yet to truly serve any purpose to the story. As Daisy and her daughter are waiting in the waiting room, the bacon assassin is slowly approaching. After Matt's leg is all healed up, he sees an ominous figure in the reflection, and just as the bacon assassin draws out his sword, Matt jumps in and attacks him, and after struggling for a bit, Molly saves him. Unfortunately, the Bacon Assassin got away, but the captain is planning a big battle against the Bacon Empire. Meanwhile, in the arena waiting room, Rose tries to explain herself, but Jess is still distraught by her betrayal. But she had no choice but to listen to the Colonel.
I won't tell you anything. You can kill me.
Otherwise, he would have killed her mother.
But I had to. He would have killed her.
It's not your fault, Rose, but we need to focus.
Jess even offers to sacrifice himself because he knows he has nothing to lose.
You have a family to go back to, Guest. You have to kill me in the guest games. There's no other way.
But luckily our goat, the doctor, comes in and takes down the guards and helps the others escape. And now they are hiding inside the bunker, again, for the time being. Still wish this was an underground resistance base though. When the siren is set off, indicating that the Roblox army is approaching, the three uses this opportunity to rescue all the guests from the camp. Jess shows up at the front gate for the second time, and he and Guest take down the guards.
Oh no, not you guys again!
And then all the other bacon hairs show up, but this time, they're actually on their side.
Don't worry, Jess. These are my friends.
Even though it just feels so sudden, that they just suddenly decided to switch sides, since there was no build up to this. But at least they realized the wrong they were doing.
Killing people because they're different from us is wrong. It's time we stand up for what is right.
I can't stand in front of a class and teach students bacon propaganda any longer.
Rose then reunites with her mother, and Guest gathers all the other guests and requests for their aid.
The Roblox army needs our help. We have to stop this bacon regime once. Anyone that can fight, follow me and Jez.
And now, for the biggest showdown. As the Roblox army is preparing for the final battle, and seeing the size of the Bacon army, the Roblox army are having doubts at first. But luckily, Guest comes in and Matt is ecstatic to see him alive again. And of course, the Bacon Resistance joins alongside the Roblox army. And now for the final showdown between the Roblox army and the Bacon army to end this war once and for all. And I'm surprised that Roblox Studio didn't crash during all of this. Why is this guy carrying his comrade in the middle of the battlefield? We cut to the battle between Guest and the Colonel, and somehow, Guest dodged the fucking bullet again. God damn it, this is not the fucking Matrix. I don't fucking know how Guest has this massive plot armor. As the Colonel is about to shoot Guest, Rose jumps in and sacrifices herself. But the real question we should be asking is what kind of mother lets her own daughter run into a literal war zone and lets herself get shot? Is this like in Madoka Magica, where Madoka's mother also does the same thing by trusting her daughter to run into a literal storm to save her friend? Because the only difference is that Madoka Magica is somewhat more impactful than the last Guest. As the Colonel is about to finish off Guest, he conveniently runs out of bullets and runs off to the mountain.
Do you have any idea how fast I am?
And after reloading, Jess manages to catch up to him. The two are fighting each other, and Guest jumps in, making him drop his gun. And after nearly pushing him off the cliff,
this is for Zara.
Jess finally avenges Zara by finishing him off. Also, I know this is a small nitpick, but that gun looked like it was falling off a cliff. Why not show Jez barely grabbing the gun before it fell off the cliff? Finally, the war is over. Rose manages to survive a gunshot. The Bacon Empire has finally surrendered, and Guest finally reunites with his family. And thus, the whole world of Roblox doesn't have to live in fear anymore. 1 year later, the Guest, the Bacon Hairs, and everyone else are able to coexist together. You know, despite all the flaws I've pointed out, this is actually the most sweetest ending in a Roblox movie. Everyone is getting along, having a nice hot barbecue, exactly what Jess and Zara envisioned. And to end things off, Matt finally got married. Why did ObliviousHD's self-insert wanted to have sex?
Sex?
I have no idea. And Guest is happy to see everyone, without judging each other based on their appearance, live together in peace and harmony. And that is the end of the story. And so, what now? Did I already mention that we have the sequel to The Last Guest in the form of a horror movie that, for some reason, ObliviousHD decided to make, taking place over 10 years after the events of The Last Guest? The story of Blox Watch follows the daughter of Guest named Charlie, who is now a teenager, navigating through her new school, making new friends, and learning about this mysterious entity known as Blox Watch. She also learns about this mysterious powers she has, which she received from the pink crystal her father gave to her as a gift. Because of this pink crystal, granting her supernatural abilities, this would make her, as the trailer would call it, an astral human. So yes, there are in fact superpowers in the Last Guest universe, which feels weird that ObliviousHD decided to introduce magical supernatural elements in a world where the Bacon Hairs literally tried to kill all the guests. Is this like in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, where Stance originated from a meteorite from a very long time ago? So I'm assuming these crystals has to come from somewhere, right? Anyways, I do find it interesting how the school teaches the students about the history between the Guests and the Bacon Hairs.
The Bacon people felt that they were being treated like second-class citizens, outcasts if you like, which led to a lot of discontent amongst the local Bacon.
Which is a nice reference to The Last Guest, and Charlie has learned very well from her father.
Bullying him because he's a bacon hair? You're pathetic. My dad taught me to be strong and not run away from my problems, so no, I don't want your advice. Stop hiding and stand up for yourself, Zach.
And best of all, finally, a guest who doesn't look like the default ones. Now that's what I call good character design. Unfortunately, not much is known about these astrals, since there's only one episode. You know, random thought. A while ago, I found this cool art on Twitter, and it made me realize that this and the whole lore of Guest 666 could possibly work in the Don universe, don't you agree? But, of course, ObliviousHD himself has stated that he wasn't too happy with how Blox Watch turned out.
One of them you'll know is Blox Watch, which I wasn't personally happy with the final outcome, but I have learned from the experience, and I feel like as long as you learn, there's nothing wrong with failure.
Which makes sense, because introducing these two universes is a terrible idea, and will create a lot of confusion regarding their involvement in the big war. So there probably won't be any more Blox Watch afterwards, but I personally find this concept to be very interesting, and would love to see ObliviousHD expand and improve upon it, if he were to come back and decide to continue on with the series. But since this is the sequel to The Last Guest, then this is further proof that the Bacon Hair series has nothing to do with The Last Guest, because otherwise there would be people with superpowers in it. Honestly, I don't know why some people would think that the Bacon Hair series is related to The Last Guest. It's not, I can assure you that. I'm sure ObliviousHD can clear up some things, and that is all I have to say about The Last Guest. Looking back, The Last Guest is not perfectly written, and I don't think this is a masterpiece people make it out to be, but I can at least understand why people enjoyed it, and why I even felt some nostalgia rewatching it, just like when I was rewatching Kavra's stories for a video. And with how the animation has drastically improved since The Last Guest, I'm actually looking forward to seeing what ObliviousHD has to offer if he ever decides to remake The Last Guest. And I'm gonna say this one last time, The Last Guest is still objectively better than all of the current brain rot shit we're getting. And so with that, thanks for watching, follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky, and now would you excuse me? I guess I'll try playing Forsaken for the first time.